Welcome back to the series, The Journey of the Young Christian Man. I'm the host, Nick Hart, and today I'm interviewing my good friend, David Veizaj, who I've known since high school. David's been a good friend of mine, and we've both recently tried to start exploring Christianity even further, and this is kind of what prompted this whole thing. So I'll let David introduce himself, but I'm excited for this episode and to be talking with someone who is already, a good friend. So David, how you doing? Tell us about yourself.
I'm good. Thank you for having me, Nick. Big honor. And I'm grateful that I was part of creating this podcast, because I think a lot of it I could see the beginnings of it in the formings of like our conversations where we talk about where we're struggling and where we're doing good and stuff like that in that regard. And then I remember one day you were like, "Oh, we should start a podcast." And I probably blew you off.
You're probably like, yeah, no.
Yeah. But hey, came to fruition, and I listened to the first episode and I liked it. And I know Ken is on next, and he'll probably do a much better job than I could. So it's definitely.
He already did.
Yeah.
So you got a competition.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that was yeah. Definitely like being able to talk to you about and like kind of being both of us being unsure about our faith, and I mean not in like a doubting way, I would say, but just like we're 20 years old, like what do we know?
Exactly.
And who, like we don't. So if for those of you guys who don't know, before this podcast has started a while, me and the previous guest, Ken, would meet kind of weekly and just talk about things like theology, because I met Ken through the School of Music and the church that I play at, and that was a big help, like in kind of just keeping me on track and help me reflect on my own things. And I knew David, and I would have these conversations separate with David and have these conversations with Ken, and I was like, we should combine the two.
Yeah. And one thing you said that was good, I picked up on, is you said, "Oh, we would have, sorry, not doubts. What did you say? Where would we struggle?
Maybe?
Yeah, questions." Yeah. And I think that's one thing that I've come to accept more, is like questioning your faith is like, you don't even want to say it, right? Especially around other Christians. Like very accepting community for the most part that I've encountered, but everyone kind of wants to, like in all of life, put up a front a facade that, oh, we know everything. And even that doubt should only be about little things, right? It shouldn't be like to the core fear about faith or lack of belief. It almost feels like if you say it out loud, then like Jesus is hearing, and then oh damn, because I'm questioning my faith, I'm not believing.
Dude, that's like with anything, I feel like right now, like you imagine you said like something wrong online, like you'd have like tens of people coming to correct you and shame you for it.
Exactly.
And I think that's like a big fear. Nobody wants to ask questions because nobody wants to seem stupid or like, say anything that might be wrong.
Yeah. And I think questioning at its core, I've been reading more philosophy, and one thing I've been appreciating is how much of it is built on the back of early Christian philosophers. And I think that's something that we're not taught about in school at all, sadly, is the work of these guys, Plotinus, St. Thomas Aquinas. I mean, I can't name them off my head because I haven't studied them well enough, but I've just been reading a little bit, and Moses as the original philosopher, right? He really is like, his thoughts and his work in the Old Testament is almost like the original philosophy, because it's just thinking about thinking. And also so many of these philosophical justifications for faith and all that have only solidified my belief more. Because in the past, it's always been hard for me, especially as a student. Me and Nick study at the University of Florida, and we're always taught to an extent to question everything and to use logical reasoning. Especially me in medicine, I try to follow, if A then B, the B then C, then it's a logical trains of thought. This logical reasoning can't really be applied to faith on face value, right? Because we accept as Christianity that we're saved by grace through faith, and we've got to believe in God, and you almost don't want to question it. You just want to like be blissfully like, okay, I believe.
Yeah.
But for me, that never quite worked. And it wasn't until I started reading more and questioning more and asking more questions and talking to people, even though Nick doesn't know much, Ken, no, yeah, Nick, Ken, Nick's father and stuff, and to my priest, to other people of faith that I've met, and asking them questions has solidified a lot more. And reading these Christian philosophers done a lot for me.
Yeah, I feel like you were saying how you questioned a lot, and like you had to find a way of not proving things, but just like making sense, finding a logical path. I feel like we're in the age of information. Like everybody, information's at your fingertips. You can ask ChatGPT anything, and it'll summarize it for you in a pretty concise, like understandable way that you can probably teach a monkey.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And so like it's reasonable for you to want to find an answer, a logical reason as to why these things happen. And asking questions is good. But another thing is like religion and faith is also based a lot in like mystery and wonder. And so I don't know. Like I think people are afraid to not know things.
That's fair.
And that can make faith a little shaky. Whereas like you cannot know things and just kind of trust that things will be all right.
Yeah, that's hard. It's hard for me. And also everyone's journey of faith is so different. Like
way to plug the title.
What? Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah. I didn't even notice. Yeah. I mean, some people have just been raised from young. I mean, I've been raised in a church, but a lot of people are just raised from young, and it seems like they never have any doubts. They just, it's clear to them. And then some people struggle a lot, and some people never born in the faith come to it. And so I think everyone will have their individual journey, right? That's something I think we're told relatively often. And for me, as someone who likes reading, who likes seeking the answers to stuff, I think asking these big questions and getting at least some answers to them. Obviously, there's not going to be an answer for everything. If God wanted to just drop down and show us right now, he would. He didn't want to make it.
There also wouldn't be much of a point then. It'd be like, exactly. You'd just be stupid to not.
Yeah, and that's why I struggle with a lot of. I mean, as a Catholic, a lot of people will try to prove it through. I don't want to talk bad, but like,
he's gonna strike you down right now, dude.
Yeah, exactly. But like, there's certain like supernatural things that a lot of people will point to. Well, they'll be like, oh, there was a sighting of a cross in the sky above a church, and Papa Pedro, something. But like he was born apparently with like the marking on his hands and feet like Jesus, and apparently he was healing people. I don't know. I wasn't around, so I would never say something like that on a holy man. But for me, that doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't solidify my faith. But like, it almost like makes it less believable to me when it's
because people are trying so hard to like
exactly. And also, if God wanted to, if God really said, "Hey, this guy who was in the 1940s or 1970s, he was healing people," I feel like that would almost make it less impactful, but
wondrous and magnificent. Yeah,
exactly. And I mean, I think it's what made Jesus unique. If we had 10 saints, we had a saint every century, that could do this stuff, then what would it be? What would be so significant about God sending his son down? So I think God puts the mysteries in place for us. And for some people that might be, they might believe that, and maybe there's some truth in that. But for me, I look less to the figures. I look more to the reading and stuff. And that's helped me a lot in asking more questions.
Yeah, for sure. I also think, just to kind of add a little thing on the end of that, that like, it's a very humanistic thing to prove that, like to try to prove something and like establish it, like proving yourself or like, and it's kind of, I don't want to say egotistical, but like with faith, I feel like God doesn't feel the need. God's not like insecure. God knows who he is.
Yeah.
and who we are, and
yeah, and
he
you can
knows
feel
that.
almost like you need to personally like it. Yeah, I'll get heated a little bit with people who question or like not insult the faith, but sometimes for maybe more than I should about people questioning or expressing like dislike for the faith, because it almost feels like an attack on me. Whereas I should be able to chill out and look at stuff as Jesus would, as these are fellow brothers and sisters, and we should accept them and guide them.
That's definitely like I think a big theme, especially with like young men, where we feel like we have to uphold something. You have to uphold your masculinity or your like, your faith. You have to prove that you can do it. And I don't know, like, correct me if you think I'm babbling, but like
what I was thinking about earlier while I was cooking and Nick was waiting on me. I was just lifting right earlier. Me and Nick both like lifting weights, very guy thing to do. And yeah. And so I think about like the image I uphold and the image Nick upholds, and why we're struggling to fully connect, like fully. I mean, maybe everyone does. I know every time we speak with Ken and all these other people in the other strong Christians, that they it feels like they have everything put together and they tell us they don't. But for me, the difference for me and them is their whole figure, like you said, and you touched on this with your dad, is being a Christian first and then everything else second. I think for men it's extra hard because, or no, yeah, but society today makes it really difficult because and society forever, men should be strong, men should be tough, and so it could be hard to some of like the characteristics of the faith almost seem like some of the stuff that Jesus would do.
Being gentle, being kind.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're like, oh, that dude's a loser. He's too nice. Nice guys finish last.
Yeah, and like in stuff like weightlifting or boxing, you
have to be the biggest and the
academics. Yeah, and the figures we look up to, right? Like I was a kid, Michael Jordan was the coolest guy, right? And then you look at it and you think about it, you're like, oh wait, he was like not a good father. He had like 2 marriages. His kids aren't doing anything. What did he do well? He was like a really good basketball player. And yet yet as kids, we're like really easily impressionable. And so we kind of look up to these people as a whole and don't realize that we don't necessarily want to be like them. And they maybe aren't the best figures. So I think it's like a really deep like thing programmed in you that's like reinforced, right? You should be aggressive. You should chase your goals hard. And that can be at odds.
I'm going to add the basketball in this because I was thinking about this when you were like society kind of expects this. There have been talks of like as the NBA is evolving and people are like different sizes and have more skill sets, big guys who can like shoot threes, it's becoming positionless. And I think the ideal like society maybe is a positionless, like the man don't have to provide or like be the strongest or the biggest. That was a stupid analogy, but the point is like I don't like the expectation that can be put on men where it's like you have to be the strongest, but not only be the strongest, you have to prove that you are, or else you're not.
Yeah.
And this like proving everything, proving your faith, proving. I see people.
I think though, there's some good there too. I think.
Yeah.
There's like good and bad. So I remember because we did talk with Ken about this, and so I push back always. I try to look at both sides, and at the same time, men biologically and throughout history, we should be a strong figure. We are the head of the family. We, got to be strong for our wives and for our children, and that's how it's always been. And just being strong in general is a good characteristic, I think. Being tough, being not emotionless, but in control of your emotions, and being hardworking, passionate, stuff like that we associate, disciplined, stuff that I associate with like a good man in my head. Now the difference is, now I think the hardest part is with aggression, right? is what your level of like bravado and aggression is. And that's what we talked about with Ken. I think said something good, is that you should be like a gentle lion. Like he said to me, like, it'll be like Mike Tyson, in the street, someone's picking on him and trying to start a fight, and he just looks at them and forgives them and doesn't have anything to prove. And I think when you get to that point, that's what I think the ideal is, where we shouldn't be trying to prove anything, and that we should just be like secure enough in our faith and in who we are, that we don't have to like do anything stupid or aggressive to like prove anything, and we just live to our values.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's an ideal point, but I think we got to talk about getting there. And I'm realizing we haven't fully kind of covered who you are and I don't know if you've established your faith, or like if you're at that point. So can you just tell us did you grow up in a church? A little life story, a brief bio.
So I born to my parents, Albanian immigrants, super hardworking people. My dad is like most masculine man I know. He's a big guy, military, basketball player, everything. My mom's super hardworking, super kind. I mean, just does everything for us. And then, I grew up in the church. We were always like Easter and Christmas, and we'd try to go, and so it was back and forth, and faith can take a backseat whenever you are striving for other things, and that's something that's hard. Like we were trying to establish ourselves, my parents in a new country, and get a successful future for the kids, and so faith was almost placed by the wayside, and so over time we've like gone and forward and back, and my parents have gotten back into it and out though, and then stuff gets in the way. And in college I really tried to make a better initiative, but right now it's been hard. I've been reading a little, but not where I need to be, and so it's like a constant battle. And then personally, I study medicine. I've done 2 years, going on my third now, so I'll be applying to medical school next year. We're gonna see how that goes. So God willing, take me on the right path. But in my personal journey of faith, it's always been a weird battle of balancing faith with striving and being very ambitious. Like those two can feel at odds. I think that's been the whole story with me and my family, that we are trying to like establish ourselves and have a good life, which I think is a virtuous pursuit in itself. Trying to provide for your family, trying to provide value to society. For us, we do it through like medicine and working and stuff like that, and at the same time living a life in faith. So that's always been the hardest for me, and that's what I'm trying to hit right now. And because of how it can be easy to push faith to the side, and like our imminent, like I would never leave a homework undone on the Sunday, but going to church, it's a 50-50 shot,
Yeah. No, I can definitely see that. That's like, I feel like such a big theme. This sounds so like hypocritical Christian, but you always see people who are like, it takes a back seat and then it turns on when it proves a point. Yeah. So when voting comes around, or when it's time to win an argument,
someone says something like
right,
Christianity, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm throwing hands for Jesus, But
it's like, where were you?
I
didn't see you at church on Sunday.
Exactly.
And I mean, that's great. Like people still kind of accepting that as a part of them, but it's hard when like they accept that as a part of them, and they don't necessarily like, they know this is kind of always been around. Yeah. But like they haven't really explored it. They don't have anybody to ask about it. And like, dude, in high school, I don't ever remember asking questions about faith to my friends at a lunch table. Like never. That would not happen. Even like you and I was good friends with you, but like we only started talking about our faith in college, once we got to college. Yeah. And that's
weird, like you're almost it's like kind of society and like your goals and stuff are this way, and like faith is like here, and merging the two is really difficult.
Yeah, and I think I kind of got lucky because like my father being a pastor, so it was just a part of my life.
Yeah.
Even then though, like I did have a person that I could always ask questions.
Yeah.
And that helped a lot. But like outside of that,
hard, like in music though, like because what is your biggest time commitment, right? Probably what you're most passionate about. For you, it's music. For me, it's medicine. In the past, for better or for worse, religion was a big part of life, right? I mean,
absolutely.
In schooling, they would have prayer before everything. Like you were, religion was just
all of music has come from
exactly
expanded from
medicine. Like so much of it is based on like Renaissance, work, and then like religious ethics and stuff like that. And we've completely switched around now. Like it's really taboo. Like you can't say God bless you to a patient, or not like when they sneeze, but like you can't stuff like that. And they'll have chaplains and stuff in hospitals, but it's almost like
it's
dying
for the
out.
people who want it. Like exactly. It's not for everybody anymore.
And obviously there's reason for that. Faith has had some like bad impacts in history and stuff, and there's been some messy stuff there.
Saying it now with wars over people's own faiths and everybody's killing each other.
And so obviously there's a reason for it, but it makes it hard. And so like in the clinic, I don't make it clear that I'm a Christian. I try to by my actions, but I don't make it explicitly clear. And so I could kind of take it wayside. And then where else? Like, what are my other pursuits? It's not big. You don't see it in a boxing gym. You don't see it in a weight room.
Bless you.
Yeah, exactly. and then even like the things we look at and like respect about each other. Like in high school, no one's the man for
carrying around their Bible. Or,
exactly. For being able to like recite verses. And like now I find it like the coolest thing ever when I've known a couple guys who just have Bible verses on their head like that, and I want to get to that level. But society as a whole, no one. I mean, maybe some people do, but for me at least, the impression that I always got is like you get respected for like money, power, respect, fame, and like conquering.
Yeah. That's what like social media has done. Like people get a million likes, and then they're king of the world, and they're God.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I wonder, like we were talking about, like you're not the man because like, or at least in high school you never seen as the man because you went to church or like you went on a mission trip to wherever and actually helped people. And I wonder if that's because like I don't like it feels weird talking about. I think because we live in such a secular kind of world now, or it's compared to hundreds of years ago, that you're, I don't want to say the minority, but like it's not just assumed that you're Christian. And then like you talk about it,
taboo now, like
you talk about it and people go, oh,
yeah,
like, oh, I didn't realize. Even this podcast, like I'm posting it on my Instagram, whatever.
And you probably feel a little bit like not cringy, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
but like nobody, everyone I know, follows me on Instagram. Shout out. But like everybody I know hasn't seen that part of me. Yeah. Because it's, and I don't, that brings up questions like I don't know why they haven't seen that part of me. Maybe that says something about me. Yeah. But it's weird, like putting this out there. Kind of, it feels strange. And I don't think it should, but like that's just the way of life. And I think that touches on like why is it hard to talk about your faith, especially as a young man?
Yeah, it's so weird. Like we're living like double lives where we don't want these two areas to intersect. Like I do totally different things with totally different friends, and and I don't know why. Like I'm trying to think about it and why religion is so like out of it. And like I think the majority know I'm Christian, but it's not like the first thing that comes to mind, Yeah. and it's hard. And also people, you can get a negative perception when you're that guy, that religious guy, you know? I mean, I know
Definitely.
Maybe not in my clinic, but like I know some really, really nice people who other people just don't like because they're very virtuous, and that stuff isn't necessarily respected in modern culture. You got to be.
I think people like. This is gonna sound weird, but people like to hate. Like people want to like you, but they don't want you to be better than them.
Yeah.
Or else you're like too good. You're too righteous.
Yeah.
I think that comes from like a place of like.
Jealousy.
Yeah, of character.
Yeah. And it's
sometimes
it's so hard, like not wanting
not
to
feeling that.
Yeah, and not wanting to present yourself as like weaker or almost out of it. Like it's hard to just let go. And like I'm trying to think about why I still do some of the sins I do and why I don't.
I'm trying to think
faith
about
is
that
a bigger
too.
role. Yeah, and a lot of it is because
about you, but
and a lot of it is because you don't want to seem weak, or you don't want to it almost feels like you get left behind in the world if you aren't willing to be like do non-Christian things.
Yeah. Dude,
think of like woman is a big one, obviously. I mean, we're two 20-year-old guys, like women rule the freaking world for us, but like
that's right, they do.
But and like
I know what you mean.
I don't want to gossip with my girl. I hate like that's one thing like I try to always avoid, right?
That's something that like is insane now. Like,
but
I feel like everywhere you go is gossip, and if you're not including if you're not adding to that conversation, people are gonna be like, "Oh, this guy's weird. He doesn't talk."
Yeah, and like she'll tell me about something like that, and I don't want to be like, "Oh, we shouldn't gossip," because I'll be like, "Oh, she's not gonna enjoy spending time with me. Who's she gonna go gossip to?" Like all these thoughts run through your head, and you end up just putting your values by the wayside and doing stuff. For me, it was like getting in romantic relationships young that I was probably not ready for. And, I mean, like
that's what you do. That's like
that because they were like, "Oh, come take me out on a date." I'm like, "I don't know what I'm doing." But that's what people do. So you just kind of force yourself out there. And she's like, "Oh yeah, you know what you're doing, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know what I'm like." No one knows. We're like kids up until like even now, and so
man.
you just kind of try to put it together and act like you know everything, and that puts you in some bad spots because just being vulnerable and like not knowing stuff, like we said, it can make you look weak, and it's like something we try to avoid so much.
I think I'm stupider now than I was like 5 years ago. And and I'm older and I have more life experience, but I was asking you if I should spend like more than half my money to buy another motorcycle.
Yeah.
That was a real question I had today.
Yeah.
And like, so the concept that people are supposed to be all knowing when we're asking dumb questions, like these are stupid things to be wondering about.
Yeah.
And like, I don't want to say young men or like, kids this age should be coddled like babies, but like, man, this is raw and like vulnerable, and man, I want to be like a productive member of society, but like, it's easy to throw your values aside when like so much is like, I don't want to say expected of you, but just kind of assumed, I guess.
Yeah, and like for last year or the year before, I had a period where I was completely disconnected from the faith, and I just tried to like ignore it. I was like, no. I'm just not gonna, because it almost would just weigh on me like a guilt, and I was like, I give up. I'm not gonna try to live like that anymore. And a lot of it is like out of worry of.
Wait, sorry. You didn't want to live. You're like, I give up trying to
like live
sin free
of sin. Yeah, free of sin. Yeah, and
that's hard.
And it's like the reason for that was that it almost felt like I was putting myself at a disadvantage. Like,
I don't want to feel bad about doing these things. I'm going to stop caring.
I don't want to feel bad about it. Two, it looks like we said before, aggressive people and can seem like they win everything. You know, I mean, like the people who cheat and lie in classes to do stuff. I remember getting a B on my microbiology exam, and my friend is just like telling me like, oh yeah, dude, that class is the easiest thing to cheat on. You put it on. And like, it just like really got me mad, you know, that I kind of hit that point where I was like,
I'm going to start cheating
more. Yeah. I could have studied more, but everyone's cheating and I'm getting screwed for it. And so why do I try to uphold these moral values in a society that like doesn't reward it, you know? Yeah. If these guys are going to get A's, why should I like be a victim of this system? Or I mean, I hate to keep harping on women, but like, oh, if I get more attention from women and they treat me better when I act worse, you know, I act bad boys, cringy, whatever, you know, like that sort of thing. If you don't,
nice guys finish last.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like that's something that like realistically you're told, and like there's some truth to it, you know. If you're soft and vulnerable and stuff, you're like opening yourself up to get messed up in a lot of regards. So I would like avoid that. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'm done with that. And it made things easier, and you could just disconnect from like life. You could just run it and do whatever you want. But I just felt horrible. You know, I knew that there was something missing. And then I inched my way back in to the faith. And like since then I felt so much better. And obviously I sin, and then I feel like crap afterwards. And I regret it.
You can curse.
I think that's good. And I think that grounds me, and I think that makes my life so much happier. And even if I get screwed because I won't cheat on an exam, or because I'm vulnerable with my girl and she ends up leaving me and now I'm hurt, that's part of the beauty of life, in my view.
Yeah.
Taking your losses as they come, and if it happens, it happens, right?
Yeah, I think that's another thing is like all of this, you know, trying to be macho, not trying to be macho, but like be a bad boy or like not be vulnerable is all in an effort to control things. And I think young men are taught like you can't control anything. Like I think people think they have a lot more power than they do, and so that results in like, I'm gonna do this and I'll be fine. I can control if they can see my screen while I'm cheating. Like I'm in control of this, and that's just not how that works. And it takes, you know, if you don't like realize that, you're not told that, or if you're told the opposite, if you're told that you are in control, everything that happens to you is a result of what you do. It's like, which is I mean, that's, I feel like
when the reality is like in between, right? And what's the philosopher's name? I think Roman philosopher
Socrates,
Boethius, I believe.
Sure.
Right. He talked about fates, all right, and like how we are all just subject to God's plan for us. And now whether it's preordained or not, I know it's like a whole discussion in itself, but we can all agree that at any moment stuff can hit the fan and it could become a disaster, and trying to control it and all that, and trying to minimize risk and minimize vulnerability and all that, and shell up in your guard, it's just going to end up, you're not throwing anything. You know, you're not going to win a fight if you're just in high guard. Sure, you're in like your best defensive posture. Like maybe you're not going to get it as easy as if you're hands down. But if you're not throwing, you're not going to ever win the fight. Yeah. So I think we got to put our guard down and just live according to what we at our core know is right. And for me, I have a strong conscience. I have a feeling like when things are right and when things are wrong. And I know I could live according to that. I just got to like
do it
and listen to it, right?
Yeah.
And I think everyone has to an extent. I think like you too, you'll tell me, you'll be like, David, I did something stupid, you know? And like we know when we do
I don't do stupid things.
That's true. Not you, but like theoretically, you did. I think everyone has that moral compass.
Yeah.
The thing is, you could push it down to a certain degree. And
absolutely.
I think really,
I wouldn't even say a certain degree. Like you can really like
Yeah, I think.
Especially if you surround yourself with people that perpetuate it.
Yeah, exactly.
And are like, dude, nah, I don't know what you're talking about. You look so cool when you were blacked out last night. That was awesome.
Yeah. And you could
that definitely
delude
infects your
yourself,
mind. And like,
yeah. And I think over time, people just completely lose the track. But
dude, especially right now, like you're in a new place, presumably. You know, if you left home for college, right?
Yeah.
You maybe know a couple people, but like you're largely surrounded by so many new people of your same age, so who are similar to you. You see that, like, you're studying the same things as them. You're with like colleagues. You're gonna respect that. You see them as peers, and you're gonna respect what they say. You know, there's like some statistics where you listen to some percent more of what your friends say than your parents until you're like 25.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you have, you know, just people who maybe aren't as strong in their morals, or who are a little more detached around you, just kind of perpetuating that, it can be hard, especially to like get out, especially when you have like a friend try to come in and tell you like, hey man, this isn't cool, or like you're screwing yourself up. Like how do you tell somebody like that, or tell a friend that's going through like the consequences of their own actions, that not that it's their fault, but that they can change, and not seem like an asshole. Like how do you?
It's hard. I'm not good at it. I'm sure you know.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's easy for me to disconnect. You know, like people start doing stuff that I don't like, then I can cut them out because it's easier than like sitting there and remedying it. Right? It's so much easier because you could just remove it. It's like a little scab. You know, you just pick it off, right, and sit there and wait for it to fester, do all that. You know, and you got to mess with it. No, just pick it off. But it never allows you to establish like the longest relationship and the most meaningful ones if you just keep doing that. And yeah, they on initial things, most people will shut you off. You know, I think of like my dad. He's got to lose weight. Man's too big. You know. Now, me telling him that. Yeah, me telling him that as a 18-year-old, 19-year-old, his creation, like. And so like he obviously blew me off for like months, you know, like leave me alone, man. You're my like creation. Like you know nothing.
I made you.
I made you, exactly. Like, and he's right. And I'd acknowledge that. And but eventually he started loosening up, and he saw when I gained a bunch of weight. He's like, oh, you'll see. You won't be able to take this weight off. And I lost all the weight. And over time he was like, maybe there's a little there. And we started over time. It took a while, but now he started like doing some of the stuff and putting in that extra effort that I know he could. And just being that little voice on the shoulder, even if it's not a direct confrontation. Because at the start I tried to just like force on him. I just guilt trip. You're going to be dead like for my marriage. If you don't leave.
That always works, dude. You're going to hell.
Yeah.
Stop living like this. You're going to go to hell.
And there's like, sorry, I got to turn my oven off. But there's like, yeah, maybe it could work for certain situations. But for the majority, I don't think so. I think most people are set in their ways to a degree. And they don't want to hear stuff. I don't want to hear from Nick when I'm not doing things. What does Nick know? What do
I know? I don't know much.
Nothing. So, but Nick has been telling me for the longest time, David, you got to be like more emotionally vulnerable and stuff. Be more open in your relationships. And like,
yeah,
as much as I'd like, Nick, you're a loser, you're a baby, this, that. Mm-hmm. Over time,
I got you a girlfriend.
Exactly. Yeah, I internalized it, and now, like, yeah,
you're Petunia.
I'm Petunia. Exactly. Yeah, to an extent, you know, and I'm happy for it.
Yeah, that's such a big part that like people ignore. See, I feel like some days I'm talking to people and I'm like, there's no way there's this many airheads on campus, and they're like, dude, like, I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm having a bad day, or like, you know, I don't know, I'm just feeling down. maybe it it probably was you who I was talking to, and you were like, dude, I never get sad. I don't know what you're talking about. You're just a loser. And I think that's because people don't want to be weak. Nobody wants to be seem weak. But like when you're questioning things, when you're going through it, I feel like that's when you have to like reach out to people, or else you're just gonna like turn to these sinful ways of like fixing your problems, which isn't really fixing your problems.
Yeah, you could just drown them out really easy. Like I think so many of these things, like, oh, what does alcohol cure? I think like alcohol cures like loneliness in a lot of ways. People will get
heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly, yeah. But like it's like a band-aid for loneliness. Like, oh, you'll get drunk outside, and it's almost like you're being social with your friends, but it's not quite. And like short-term romantic relationships focuses on like sex, like that is like the lack of companionship and the lack of like meaning and self-confidence. I think you get a sense of like a thrill, like, oh, they like me. And I think for both men and women, that's like one of the big driving factors, but it's so inconsistent and just horrible for you. And then like drugs, a lot of it is to numb like deep-seated pain. I see a lot of the people that I see in my clinic, severe mental issues and traumas and stuff. And if you take opiates, you feel better. I mean, like the pain does less. I mean,
drugs work, but what are you doing to
your die? And so it's hard. And even stuff like, and that's the thing. There's like healthy and unhealthy ways to cope with it. But at the end of the day, I think you have to force, like even like weightlifting can be a band-aid for lack of like self-confidence, right? Like you take pride in your physical appearance. But I think they're all band-aids because, I mean, you've seen it, Nick. You've gotten a lot bigger. I mean, not much to look at right now, but in the past, it was tragic.
It was even less to look at.
Like it was bad. Like he's like an oblong rectangle, one like this.
Right. Yeah,
with like toothpicks sticking off the end of it.
Nice. Yeah.
You had a tendency to take your shirt off a lot for no reason. Like I would have.
I don't. You're just lying now, but
all right. Yeah. Now you've gotten a lot bigger, Nick. Now it's like this a little. Like it's like a slight rectangle with a little bit of taper. But regardless, like, has that helped? Be real.
No, I've always been this.
Exactly. Same confident. With me. I mean, like
all right, bro.
But there's like no, there. I don't. It looked like a joke, and I really didn't feel like much because at the end of the day, that's just all like it's a band-aid. It's a more healthy band-aid for confidence, right? And at the end of the day, I think your confidence has to come from
the Lord.
Journey.
We're done.
As a young Christian man. No, but it has to come from something more sustainable. I think love and faith and
good relationships. I definitely feel like when I talk to Ken and he like just a little like you guys got this. I'm like, my week is good.
The affirmations that people you love
from like people, not just from people like in general, but like people who it feels so much better when you hear that from somebody that will call you on your bullshit. Like like when I hear a real compliment from you, I'm like, okay, this is something is actually happening.
Yeah. No, 100%. And same here. And I think that's where you build it fully. And also being like, I think I'll be more confident when I could recite Bible verses off the dome,
Yeah. I mean,
maybe that won't even do it, but maybe just being in the place I am right now from faith has made me more confident, because even if everything goes wrong, I'm a lot more all right with it. Like I used to stay up nights thinking about like what would happen if I die. And these would be nights that I'd go out and partying and get drunk and I was away from God. And I'd come back home and I'd sit there and I'd stare at my ceiling and think about like, oh, what if I die in my sleep? What if I just throw up and suffocate on my own vomit and then I'm dead and then it's like I never existed? And that thought used to haunt me. Or I just wake up and I get hit by a car. There's so many ways to die, And
right
at the end, it's inevitability. Like it's gonna happen that we're gonna die. And that used to be the worst thing ever. And And some people struggle with it, but it's not like something you just walk up to class and talk to the person next to you and be like, yo.
Yeah. You ever think about dying?
This thought would like consume me. Now I remember it got to the point where like during class, like I'd be sitting there and like I just want to talk to someone so bad. And it only faded when I started living better, living more righteously and turning to God.
You've been living righteously?
What?
Said you've been living righteously?
I'm gonna give you this righteousness. But yeah, I mean, like, living more righteously, reading gospel, and
but how would you know? Like, imagine you're in that situation, you're thinking about death and like, what would happen if I just died? You know, and that's like haunting you, and you're near a panic attack, right? But like, your parents never showed you church. Like, how do you? That's what do you?
I think
what do you
do? The way that we do it, and that's why that's one of our duties, I think, as a Christian, is to live a life where we show Christ. Because my example was like my brother. All right, like
shout out Jason.
Shout out Jason, the GOAT. All right, I would talk to him about it, and he never seemed bothered. He would never give me good answers. I didn't like it. You know, he wouldn't really be bothered by that, and it would annoy me genuinely. But then I like started thinking about. I was thinking about like, why is Jason so stable? Why is he so? Why is he not bothered by these thoughts? And like after picking his brain for a while, I mean, I came to a realization that it was based in a faith in the Lord and the faith that the Lord put him on here to do his duty. And when the Lord wants to take him, it'll be his time. And there's nothing you can do about that. And he's just going to live a righteous life, and that will bring him the fulfillment. So, and I think it's all wrapped together. And when you don't have a clear meaning and don't have a clear path with the Lord, yeah, that seems like the end. And it can mess with you horrible. But he guided me to that. And I think for you, like what you said, Nick, the people who don't have God in their life, I think that's what Christians should be the example of, right? Like we should hopefully, maybe one day I'll have, I don't know, a colleague or something at school, or my son, I don't know, my daughter. And they'll come to me and be like, I've been struggling with this, and I can accept their yoke, their burden, and then help them the way that Jason did and the way that Jesus did to Jason, you know, and whoever it was that did that. And I think that's a
like,
beauty.
It's like a torch you pass.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And
we all lay our yoke onto the king.
I definitely think like that. Yeah, I think you're right. Like that is what it should, what being a Christian should be.
Yeah.
I also think like that can be hard to portray that, especially when you're in class and somebody's talking to you about that, and you're like, oh, dude, the faith has really helped me, and they're like, really? This Christian dude outside just said, you know, if I abort a baby, I'm gonna burn in hell, or like, you know, like it can be hard when people are out here using the religion to like just chastise people. And it's like, yeah, you know, there are rules in Christianity, and we're not gonna like just say, yeah, God loves you, you can do what you want. That's something Ken says a lot. Like we have to be honest with ourselves, but we also need to be gracious. Like we're all sinners. So I think showing that loveness and and kindness is
I think
important.
that's the best way to long-lasting faith. I think also, like a lot of people and a lot of church, I feel like now has adopted the spray and pray method, or like the, you know, what you described, like the fear method. And it definitely can work, you know. And the people who do it, I don't like, you know, this is what they see as their mission. But I think a lot of it will bring people in. Maybe they'll come in their time of need. But I think once it gets better, or it gets worse, the other way around, they come in. I don't think it creates like a long-lasting faith. And I think that comes from something deeper, where you come to God and he clears the path, shows a clear path to you, and then you grow in that faith, and then you build a loving community around it. And I mean, for me, like, it was in that dark time that I saw guidance from my brother, and then met some Christian people and got closer with you and had those conversations with you, that I created that longer lasting connection. And it wasn't from you telling me, well, David, if you keep partying, you're gonna go to hell, man, or something like that, or being like, oh, Jesus saved you, so don't even worry about it. It was you. It was something in that middle.
And that's like a weird, like, I can tell you kind of wanted to like explore faith, but what's hard for me is like finding people who I see living or who will like complain to me. I love like a lot of my friends, man. People will be complaining about, and I'm like, this is the consequences of your own actions.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're calling me at 4 a.m. worried about like passing out drunk in a bush because you went out and I love you, but like, and this isn't about you, but I got friends that I'm like, man, you're doing this to yourself, and there's like, and not to say that I got to figure out, I don't know anything. But like, I want
what we can do is be that bastion of like strength and fortitude in God, and they could come to us in those times, and we just give them like little seeds, right?
We're so much better and awesome than them as Christians.
Exactly.
Amen, brother.
Amen.
Bang.
Yeah.
No, that's another thing that's like hard to.
No, but like everyone is on their own path, right? Like I look up to this guy Xavier, who is a priest in training, right? And so like I'm playing in the high school rec leagues, and he's straight onto the NBA roster.
Yeah.
But I learned from him, and then a high school varsity player looks like the man to a middle schooler, to a kid trying to get on the team at all. Like I remember when I was playing basketball, and I was like in 7th grade, and I would see these kids on varsity, and I was like, oh my gosh, if I get on the varsity team when I'm in high school,
my life is complete.
Life is complete. Like, this is crazy. I get to the varsity team, and I'm like, what is this joke? Like,
it was basketball, but
Yeah, but I mean, genuinely, that's how it is with faith. Like, looking outside, people probably look at me and are like, oh, he's got to figure it out. Like, he's
I know I do.
Christian guy, yeah. Sure. Like, oh, I wish I had that level of something.
I know what you mean. Yeah. Like,
especially the same with you, Nick. Like, I would look before I actually knew that you're pretty weak on your scripture too.
Right.
I'd look at Nick and I'd be like, oh man, Nick's got all the freaking answers. Son of a pastor. I wish I was son of a pastor. And then we look at, we look at Jason, someone, and then Jason looks up to his priest at his church, and he's like, wow, I'll never have that level of sanctity and distance from sin. And so it's
a journey.
But, exactly, it's a journey. But the varsity player can help the middle schooler,
Yeah. But I think you got to go about that. Like, it's so important that you go about that with humility.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And understanding, like, maybe I am, like, I have a little more experience in, Sunday school. But, like, I'm as much a sinner as you are. You know?
I'm not pushing it either. It should be. I've had interactions, and people, like, at a church around Gainesville that I was going to for a little bit, and they wanted to get me rebaptized, and they started pushing. And I was like, whoa, let's do it, guys. And I almost, like, distanced me more. So, and obviously I'm grateful for them. They're good people I met there, and they're all part of the journey. But I think it needs to be eased in. And the idea that, like, we just gotta save everyone, like, we just gotta,
as fast as possible right now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what, like, the church has been trying to do. Like, okay, we gotta be accepting of everyone. We gotta get everyone into the church. We gotta, get everyone baptized as soon as possible, because obviously, like, it's with the scriptures, but that's an old book, man, and we don't know. And while it is, like, the best reference of what God wants, I've started to think, like, I think faith is deeper than just even the words of the Bible. It's
absolutely,
it's your own personal relationship with God, and the like living this loving and godly life is such a big part of faith. And I think if we just get caught up in the works, like we gotta baptize, cover everyone in holy water, like we may be missing the point.
And,
yeah.
I would say we can like kind of wrap up here with some last couple questions, which are how do you, if you're a young Christian man, besides listening to this podcast, get some answers to like questions like what happens if I die? Like what, like, like questions that will like screw you up or make you feel like you feel guilty about asking. Like, where do you turn to when you're like 20 years old and all your friends just know about, the best bars in Gainesville?
Yeah.
Like you can't ask them. Like, yeah.
I think it's a combination of one, people you look up to, and which you have to seek out, and also whatever resource you can find. Because we talk about the information era, there's a lot of good resource out there to read now, and so I think number one for emotional questions, especially stuff like meaning of life, all that, what happens after I die, stuff that really messes with you. I think finding someone who you can look up to and is strong in their faith is amazing for that. And I think that's what something Christianity has great is that like the father at my church, the priest, he's such an amazing guy, and he will sit there and anyone can come up to him and talk to him, and he will spend as long as needed to talk with you. And the pastor of your church seemed the same way, and so is Canon. I'm sure like 99% of people in the congregation there at the church would do the same. And then for the other one, for questions that some of it, man, I just don't even feel comfortable. Like I remember, or you don't have someone there right then that you could call. I remember after I lost my fight in North Carolina, and I was sitting outside on a bench.
1-1, baby.
Yeah, and I was sitting outside on a bench. That record is wrong, but anyway, alone in North Carolina, no one to talk to, feeling solo. And I read a little bit of Bible, and I asked ChatGPT to tell me the deeper meaning of this passage. And then I just asked it about like how I can relate it to my current situation, and connecting the word to that and using the assets we have now, it actually made me feel a lot better. And like, it was weird. I don't want to like, cause AI is the devil. No, it's not the devil. But like, I needed something right then to think in a clear mindset. Like, cause I just felt like a loser. I was like, I just lost. This guy looks like, and I was like, it feels like I keep losing at like everything. And I felt really low at that moment. And I was like, am I a loser? And I asked the robot, am I a loser? And the robot told me objectively, you're not a loser. All right. And it actually pulled on faith, which was weird. But I guess knowing that I'm faithful, it pulled on that. And it showed me like all these things that I should be proud of. And it means so much more than that in this one moment. And at the time, like when I went back inside and my coach wouldn't talk to me and it felt like, the world was over, it was in a different world. But then like when you detach yourself, you realize all this doesn't matter. And that at the end of the day, I have a loving family and I have a God that loves me and sacrificed his son for me, and I'm saved and I have amazing friends around me. No, I guess
and an acquaintance that asked him to be on his podcast.
And so for those deep questions, man, and those dark times,
ChatGPT is the
answer. ChatGPT is the
answer. No. But the word, dude, that's such a like real thing. Yeah. The wildest moments where I won't even be, I'll have like a bad day, but then completely removed, I'll also be like, that'll be a night where I happen to read scripture, and there's like one verse out of like, maybe the 20 I read that like,
it just sticks out.
I'm like, what Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
exactly kind of how I felt today. And
Yeah.
it's a little eerie, but that adds, I think, to the mystery and wonder that is.
Yeah. And like I think forcing yourself to read is really good too. Like even on those days where you don't want to, maybe you're
Like
struggling with
lifting.
something and fate doesn't come to mind. But yeah. But like I remember one night I was struggling with something. I was reading a page. I didn't really want to read that day. We just read one short passage. And man, it just like cleared it up for me. You know what I was just thinking about? It just happened to like clear it up, and it feels like you said, it's almost supernatural in how it can just automatically put you in a good mood and give you the answers you want, and that's because it's God talking to us right through that book.
Yeah.
And so we gotta turn to it.
Amen. Well, we're about out of time, so David, I'm going to ask you and force you to close us with a prayer.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, dear God, thank you for allowing me to speak with Nick tonight and for giving me this platform to hopefully reach people, and even if it's no one, and if it's just me and him, that growth in this podcast, because I don't even want to say one person, even if it's no one. I'm just glad that you give us this opportunity to grow closer to you and to each other, and then grow in stronger Christian men on our journey as a young Christian man. Sorry, I had to open my eyes to read the title again, but no, I'm grateful for this opportunity, and I'm grateful that you allow us to wake up every day and grow closer to you, and appreciate the wondrous miracles that you have done for us. And I hope that you just give us a chance one more day to just grow closer to you, and in that process become happier and better people as a result. Amen.
Well, thank you for joining me, David. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
And, we'll see you guys all next week.
Yep.